Alright, so I'm going to show you guys how to swap out your old RCA cables with a ground wire that might cause humming to these new monster cables that are internally grounded. And I got these from Technics1200s.com, found on eBay. Really high quality RCA cables. Very easy to do, just need a few tools, nice workstation. I got my precision soldering iron, a small Phillips head screwdriver, a large Phillips head screwdriver, some wire cutters, some pliers. They're actually supposed to be smaller pliers, but these work. I have a flashlight, and I also have a magnifying glass kind of rigged up here to help me see because I'm old, so it helps me out. There's some preparation involved, which we'll get started on right now. First thing you have to do is to remove the platter off of your turntable to prepare it for turning upside down. So I'll get my tools out of the way and we will start that process. So I've got my turntable here. Take off my slip mats, and the way you do it with the turntable is you use your fingers in these holes and you kind of pop it up. Pops off pretty easily for the most part. Sometimes you have some troubles. Just so you know, there's instructions that are sent with your new cables. You just go to this website on here and they're written instructions. There's not a video, which is why I'm making this video, to help you out. So take your platter off, put it aside because you don't need it. Make sure your tone arm is locked down. I'll put my cover back on to prepare for flipping my turntable upside down, which I will do now. Just be careful, hold on to the lid, don't want to break that. I have some bubble wrap down to protect my turntable as I turn it over. So the first thing you do is you take off your wheels or your feet off of the bottom of your turntable, because you're going to take this big plastic cover off. Set those aside. So then you've got an outer ring of screws holding the plastic cover on the bottom that I use the bigger screwdriver for, and then these inner rounds, those are tighter, smaller screws, so I will use a smaller screwdriver for those. And you're just basically going around undoing all these screws. And it says that you take them off and put them aside. What I do is I just leave them in the hole, make sure I unscrew them all the way, and then I just leave them in the hole that's already in the bottom of this plastic, so I don't lose the screws. I don't have to store them somewhere else and figure out which one's which. So I'm going around, make sure they're all loose. It's a very easy thing. It's makes you nervous because you're messing with a very important piece of equipment. If you're a DJ or even a hobbyist, but once you do it, it's pretty easy. So the first one you'll be really nervous about. The second one, you definitely feel a little bit more confident, which is why I didn't try and make a video with my first one. Okay, almost done with my outer. Okay, so there's my outer. Now I'll switch to my smaller screwdriver. once I take this off, I'll plug in my soldering iron to give it a chance to warm up while I take off the inner plates. There's also a recommendation on the instructions that if you're getting the Pro cables, to get to have a heat gun. I don't have a heat gun, and as much as I would have liked to have done it that way based on the instructions, the way I do it, I'll take off part of the there's a locking plastic piece that holds your RCA cables in place, so that in case something pulls on the cables, it doesn't rip them out from the board. I still use the piece that locks it in there, but I take part of it off because the new cables are fat, so they don't really fit in the normal cable spot. And the instructions online tell you to use a heat gun to melt the plastic a little bit so that they'll fit. Like I said, as much as I wish I had that, I already bought a soldering iron, which I bought for $20 on Amazon, and then I bought the RCA cables, which are I think $37 after tax, and they give you free shipping. So I've got all my screws loose, and this plastic base plate should pop off pretty easily. You might have to go around again and make sure some of the screws are completely out, because if they're even just a little bit in, they'll hold it in place. But once they're all loosened, it should just pop right off of there. There we go. Come on now. I guess this is the good reason for taking the screws all the way out. But I take this off, and I'm feeding the power cable through the nice hole that's there. And then slide that off. And then I've got my plate with all the screws in the right spot. This way I don't lose any screws. And I'll just put this aside. So then you see here, you got your power cable. I'm not going to mess with any of this other stuff here. There's your pitch control. Some people modify the pitch control. I'm not going to do that at all today. And then here's the plate holding your RCA cables in. So let me go ahead and plug in my soldering iron, get that warmed up. That's all. Start the process of warming it up, turn it on. Got a nice little holder there. Be careful, that will get really hot. So I'm going to take these screws out. There's only two holding this little plate in place. And then you've got these two screws holding the locking mechanism, this little plastic. Alright. So we got that off. And these are the only screws that I really have to figure out what to do with. So I take them all the way out. So you got these screws. And these ones are long. So I'll put those aside. this little plastic piece, that the locking thing, is a little bit of a pain to figure out. So what I used is a precision screwdriver to pop this out. I'm going to grab it real fast. So it's got two little clips that you kind of have to pop loose. It gets a little bit tricky. This is probably the hardest part. Flashlight. See a little bit more. All right, there we go. So that pops. Once you get one loose, the other side, they've got little clips that are here that you have to push in to release this top case part. And this is the part that I keep to secure the RCAs into this plate. This little part here, they basically use the heat gun to melt this, to spread it apart so that you can fit the new cables in this little spot. So I just removed this, still have this locking plate. I don't take my turntables anywhere, so unless you're traveling with your turntables a lot, you should be okay with just this top piece to secure it. If you take your turntables a lot places, I would recommend doing the heat gun process to melt this, to spread it out, to give you room to put your new RCA cables in there that fit through this hole. I don't travel with them, so I don't need that as much. So then we take this plate, and we've got, be careful of these little screws. These are the littlest screws that you deal with. And you don't want to lose those or drop them into this mechanism, so be very careful. So then this little plate slides off. Pull your old RCA cables through here. And the reason you need pliers is because with the new fat RCA cables, it's hard to fit them through this little hole, so you have to bend one of these little pieces down, and that gives you room to put it through the new RCA cables through. So yeah, so that's out of the way. And then as you can see,